Hello everyone and welcome to It Goes Off Wrap of the Round. No Grantley Bernard this week, so I'll be covering the 4 games in round 11, and it started on Friday night with the Adelaide 36ers against the Wollongong Hawks. It was a battle of the cellar dwellers, and it was the Adelaide 36ers who prevailed 87-63. Diamond Simpson, he continued his very good form with 22 points on 11 of 14 field goals and also chipped in with 10 rebounds. Daniel Johnson had 21 points and 6 rebounds. And for the Hawks, who looked very much out of sorts, Javon Catron, he had 19 points and 11 rebounds, and Tim Conrad had 12 points. The Sixers, they had a 25-10 third quarter, only the second home win of the season for the Sixers. Simpson and Johnson combined for 43 points on 19 of 27 from the field and also had 16 rebounds. And for the Hawks, well, their season continued to go south. It was their 5th straight loss, and they just had 2 players in double figures, only shot 35% from the field and only 22% from threes. In the other game on Friday night, it was the New Zealand Breakers over the Cairns Taipans. It was a replay of last year's grand final series, and Daryl Coletto, what a find he has been for the Breakers. He chipped in with 26 points on 8 of 11 from the field, including 6 of 8 from the three-point line. That, in fact, was a career high for Daryl Coletto. And Cedric Jackson, he had 18 points, also shot the ball well from 7 of 9 from the field and had 7 assists. For the Taipans, Andrew Warren had 18 and Alex Loughton had 13 points and 7 rebounds. It wasn't a pretty quarter where both these teams combined for only 20 points. The Taipans actually won that quarter 11-9. And Coletto and Jackson were superb, 15 of 20 from the field. And the New Zealand Breakers shot 22 of 24 from the free throw line. The Taipans, they have had enormous problems shooting the ball from the field. And again, it continued. 37% field goal percentage, and only got to the free throw line 8 times, where they made 7 out of 8. On Saturday night, it was the Gold Coast Blaze taking on the Perth Wildcats, and it was the Blaze who prevailed 77-74. Adam Gibson had his best game of the season, 11 of 15 from the field for 28 points. Mark Worthington was workmanlike with 15 points and 9 rebounds, and Adrice DeLeon also chipped in with 15 points. For the Wildcats, Kevin Lish, he's been fantastic all season. He had 17 points. Luke Neville had 10. But this one, it was an amazing comeback by the Gold Coast Blaze. They trailed it by as much as 21 points in the first half, and they just were able to run over the top of the Perth Wildcats. The Wildcats were held to just 7 points in the last quarter. An extraordinary defensive display by the Gold Coast Blaze down the stretch. The Wildcats, they had 19 turnovers, and in an ugly incident, they lost Matthew Knight. He had a serious neck injury and was taken off on a stretcher, so he's hoping that Matty Knight makes a full recovery from what seemed to be a very serious injury. Also, on Sunday, it was the Melbourne Tigers, 93, defeating the Townsville Crocs, 80. Cameron Trigart, 19 points on 8 of 12 field goal attempts. He is just having an MVP-type season and was brilliant again. And Tommy Greer snapped out of a shooting funk. He was 1 of 21 in his previous 5 games, but on Sunday against the Crocs, he hit on 18 points, 6 of 9 from the field. He also had 8 rebounds, and 15 of those 18 coming in the first half. And Ron Dorsey continued his resurgence. He had 18 points and 8 rebounds. For the Crocs, Peter Crawford had one of the all-time great shooting displays in the third quarter. He had 5 of 5 three-pointers, knocked them all down. He finished the game with 30 points on 8 of 14 from the field. And Jacob Holmes was sensational. What a season he is having for the Townsville Crocs. 20 points on 8 of 11 field goals and 8 rebounds in what was a pretty ugly affair in the first half, where the Crocs only had 26 points. They made a game of it, but it was Cameron Trigart and Tommy Greer who combined for 37 points on 14 of 21 field goal shootings that got the job done for the Tigers. For the Crocs, imports, Mims only had 7 points, and Gill, he had 6 points and 8 turnovers. Uncharacteristically very sloppy with the ball was Gill, and they just failed to fire and only had 9 points in the second quarter. The Townsville Crocs just struggling in that second quarter. So after round 11, let's take a look at the NBL ladder, and up at the top, not a lot has changed. It's still the New Zealand Breakers who lead it. They've played 13 games, they're 10-3, and they look very, very strong and going to take some beating this season. The Perth Wildcats at 8-5 hang on despite that loss to the Gold Coast Blaze. The Tigers are back in the top 4, and with their 7-6, and the Gold Coast Blaze, they're also back in at 5-5. So a lot of toing and froing as far as teams coming in and out of the top 4 the last couple of weeks. The Crocs at 5-5, the Taipans 6-6, still very much in the hunt, as are the Sydney Kings at 6-7. The Adelaide 36ers, well, they had a win, but still got a lot of work to do if they're going to get back into playoff contention at 4-8. And the Wollongong Hawks, it's sorry to say, but they look like they are gone for this season. Well, we've got a huge It Goes Off coming up. Peter Crawford, the superstar of the Townsville Crocs, he's going to be joining me on the program, so make sure you tune in for that. That's all we have for this week's Wrap It Around. We'll see you next week.